Welcome to this week's episode of the Creators Podcast Los Angeles. We talk to Nick Duarte of Chimp Productions. Especially now, since like a lot of us in the working world, especially in the media industries, are kind of staying home or working at home. Yeah, could we start from the beginning? So, how did you get started within the media industries?
I've always been really interested in doing creative work and artistic work and um, anything that allowed me to make something. Uh, and when I was 17, I was a senior in high school. I did a video for a school project, and it was like the first time I really had fully like made something. I did that with a partner, and that experience was just one of the funnest things. I was thinking, okay, cool. What's the next thing going to be like this? What's the next sketch or a little music video or something? And pretty much was just bit, and then from there was constantly making films.
Oh, cool. And you're before we met before this meeting. You were telling me you got started with the digital cameras, the DSLRs.
Yeah, so my first camera was just sort of a little Best Buy handy cam. It was like $300
Mm-hmm.
uh, that I had purchased with my friend, who was my partner in the work at the time. And that's what we were shot on for a couple of years. And then we were able to raise a little bit of money. And then we bought a Canon XL2 back on in the days of mini DV. Shot on that for a little bit. And then, yeah, in the summer of 2009, that's when DSLRs came out. And um, say it was, I think it was August, I purchased one of that summer. I made a spec commercial with it, made a short film, made a couple other things, but one of the spec commercials got seen by Adidas, and they recommissioned me and my team to basically reshoot it, but with one of their endorsed athletes. And so that was how that camera system, that was the 5D Mark II, became a pretty prominent thing uh, in my career, early on in my career.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you were kind of like a pioneer within the whole handheld DSLR within the media industries.
I don't know if I wouldn't go as far as say pioneer, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure how much of an influence any of my work had, but I definitely was on the early adopter side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there was a couple of years before the market got saturated, and by that point, I felt like I had a little bit of a head start, just from kind of getting some of the work seen a little bit earlier on. uh, so then that allowed me to focus more on developing voice and the style. Yeah, having that DSLR early on at that specific point in time, um, is one of those kind of externals that is beyond your control.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so that was a very fortunate circumstance for me.
Oh wow, great. So you're originally from Tucson, Arizona.
Yes, born and raised.
Oh, born and raised. Wow. Yeah. So because I think my podcast right now where I'm because I'm at the moment I'm living in Phoenix, so I want to kind of shed some light on creative people from especially Arizona, because I feel like a lot of the at the moment a lot of spotlight is on the coast in LA and
Mhm.
New York. So, can you talk a bit about Tucson? I mean, I feel like it's like kind of a little, it's a hub for art and culture that people kind of overlook.
Yeah, I think places like Tucson, and there's these sort of little islands dotted, throughout the country and throughout the middle of the country in the Southwest and so on, um, that are at the forefront, I think, of arts and artistic movements and have their own communities. Uh, and I think even more so than what the coasts have to offer is that this allows people to develop on their own as individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And then that helps them to come to the table, I think, with maybe a little bit more of a unique approach or a unique identity, whether it's in aesthetic or in content, as much in a sort of tunnel vision world as if you were on one of the coasts. So I think there's definitely pros, to making your home someplace else. For me, I really love Tucson. I think it's perfect for my personal life, for the way that I want to live my life. It's gorgeous. We have great food scene, family, all of that type of stuff. But yeah, over the last few years, we've also, had quite a pretty interesting artists either come out of here or decide to, kind of lay their hat here and call this place their home. And I think probably a lot of that is for some of those same reasons I mentioned. It's quiet and it's beautiful and all of those things. That I think it's good for the soul.
That's great. Yeah. So, as soon as Adidas picked up your commercial, you were telling me before that it kind of opened doors for you and for other avenues.
Yeah, so I was kind of coming from a situation of not really having any sort of contacts or any sort of connections in either entertainment or advertising. So just really kind of hustling, started the company on money I made as a bartender. Uh, and so what this commercial was able to do was take me out of a very small, isolated market,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and it introduced that work to a much larger market. Ended up winning a national advertising award that following year, and then got written up in a couple of well circulated blogs at the time. And between those two things, that really led to being able to travel throughout the country, and then later on do some international work as well, but still be able to call Tucson home, and still be able to make this my place. But that spot breakthrough was definitely a huge opportunity for me.
Mm-hmm. And the original commercial, what inspired you to create that commercial?
Yeah, so what it was originally was a spec commercial, and since this isn't just a filmmaker or commercials podcast, I'll explain real quickly. A spec commercial is something that you essentially pay for on your own to show what your skill set is, to build up your portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, I paid for this this wrestling commercial, or commercial for this fictional wrestling brand. That was the sport I was I think I identified myself the most by throughout high school. It was a world I knew quite a bit about, as a subculture I knew quite a bit about, and there wasn't really any sort of quality material that was focused on wrestling, on collegiate or high school wrestling.
Yeah.
So like there was a very open spot there. So I made that piece, and I think with that knowledge came a little bit more focus on nuance and all that type of thing, those types of things. And so when Adidas had seen it, they were looking to tap into that market, and it was just a pretty strong connection there. So in terms of that spot, though, the inspiration was just I wanted to get into sports work, and this was a sport like I said, I knew quite a bit about, uh, and the general concept of it was all about discipline and dedication, and spending all of these hours every single day for very few short moments where all that training matters. And I think that was something that just connected with people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so this kind of developed for you to create a production company.
Yeah, so this was able to allow me to build up a foundation for a production company, which then allowed me to continue taking on more commercial work, and then to use some of those commercial funds to finance personal projects and short films and documentaries, and um, develop my voice as a narrative and a documentarian or documentary filmmaker, and not just as a commercial filmmaker. And so it allowed that to happen. Um, Allowed me to be able to work with different writing partners and creative partners, and producing partners to continue to develop the work out and hopefully do um, stronger and more interesting material.
Hmm. Let's talk a little bit about your production company. What's the name of the production company?
It's Crown Chip.
Crown Ship. So how did you come up with that name? Sounds kind of unique.
Yeah, so my partner early on,
Hmm.
that I had mentioned, that we bought this Best Buy Handycam together with. Uh, we went to a community college film program, and
Okay.
everybody kind of had their little production company names, and we came up with this name, Crown Chimp. Um, his last name was King, so that's where we got the crown, and
Oh, okay.
I got teased for looking like a monkey, so that's where we got the chimp, and we just kind of kept it, and then I got a gig while we were still in school, and we had to invoice it as something. So,
Mm-hmm.
we just went with Crown Chimp, and then, over the years, it just made sense to keep it.
Interesting. Yeah, because you're mentioning that you went to community college, but also your crown chip during the summer. You have internship programs.
Yeah, yeah. So, I think coming out of a community college background, um, it colored my experiences differently,
Mm-hmm.
I think, than people who come from different backgrounds into this. And one of the things that when I was able to get to any sort of position to help other filmmakers or newer filmmakers was being able to have those opportunities, be able to give opportunities and recognize that not everybody is starting off on an equal to looking for those chances with students and with interns, to be able to say, hey, maybe you haven't had the chance to work on your own film or work on it the way that you wanted to, or maybe you haven't been exposed to or to different editing philosophies. Having this internship is a way to kind of tie back to that, and hopefully give back a little bit, and and find people that we want to work with in the future.
Oh, cool. Yeah, because I've seen some of your students' work. It's pretty amazing. Especially on your website, you have one student's work did a documentary about a barbershop in Tucson.
Yeah, that was the Dunbar Academy, barbershop in a historic neighborhood in Tucson, and that was made by Nickolas Leon, who interned for us. I want to say 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 2018. Is a incredibly talented filmmaker, who he makes quite a bit of stuff, experiments in different places, but I think he's very much coming into his own and his own style,
Mm-hmm.
and that's somebody that after and hire on in different capacities. So we've been able to stay pretty connected with him over the last couple of years here.
Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Let's talk a bit about more of your documentary work. 'Cause, you did a pretty amazing documentary about a trans person.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so that documentary is called Jay. It's 20 minutes long. It is about a local artist named J. Kyle Peterson. And essentially, what I thought I was going to do was do a very small profile documentary, maybe 3 minutes, on this artist. I had met him, and he had told me that um, he paints energies of people's souls, or of guardian angels or pets or places, but basically, paints the soul energy. And at the time, that was just very different than how I viewed the world.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I thought this would be an interesting thing to, kind of get his thoughts and his perspective on it. So during the pre-interview, though, he really opened up to me, and just told me, essentially his life story. And then so I realized, like, oh, the soul energy thing is the most um, traditional part of this person's life.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're starting that as our base, as our foundation, um, I think it's going to be pretty interesting and a pretty unique experience for a lot of people. So with that documentary, the goal was to really just present it and unfold the information the way that it was to me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's with documentaries, and this is sort of a hybrid approach. Uh, there's always the risk of putting too much or your beliefs in it, or we wanted it to be subjective, but subjective from Jay's point of view,
Yes.
not from my or any of my collaborators' points of view on it. And that piece, though, ended up being very well received, and it did really well online. Vimeo staff pick and short of the week and a few other things, and did pretty well on the festival circuit, and ended up having I think just kind of clicking with people, and it really is a very interesting story. I mean, I don't want to go too much into it.
Mm-hmm.
So just early on, though, you find out that he was born intersex, raised as a female in rural 1950s Minnesota. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff in there that has to do with, religion and cults and transcendent experiences and abuse and animals and all. It's just I think a very intimate but very large personal story.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. It's a really amazing documentary.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we worked really hard on that one. That was a lot of time, and even though it's only 20 minutes, it was still a few years in the making. Just trying to figure out how to do it the right way, and honor what he's trying to tell, but make sure that we're also doing it in a proper way that can help or educate or share at least this experience with other humans.
Of course, of course. And where, if people are interested, where could they find this documentary?
Yeah, right now, I'm not sure when this is coming out, but crownchimp.com/J has it. If you go to Vimeo and search J documentary, you'll find it. I believe Little Dot Studios picked it up for YouTube. So on their channel, you can find it. And then I believe it'll be also coming to Amazon Prime in the next month or two here.
Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
So quite a few different places.
Mm-hmm. One thing people always ask me, or younger people, how do they start? Where do they start? What advice will you give them?
For anybody, are you talking specifically for filmmaking or?
Filmmaking and photography, kind of yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's starting out, if we're saying this as a young person in sense of their career, maybe not age. I guess it's two different sets of advice. I think if it's a young person in age, I think self-awareness goes a really, really long way. And, checking out how do you fit into a certain situation and what is expected and not expected, and just being aware of it doesn't mean you have to follow it. But I think, the more knowledge you can give yourself, the more power that you can have. And I think that's, that helps a lot when you're trying to decide what decisions to make when you're a young person. Definitely. Entering one of these fields, right? So if you have enough self-awareness, you can decide, does going to a 4-year, make sense to me? What is the likely outcome here? Can I afford to take on these student loan debts, or is somebody else paying, or do I have a scholarship? If you are aware of your situation there, you can make a smart decision. How much do I really want this? How important is this part to my learning?
Mm-hmm.
If you know, how do you learn better um, in an environment where there are other people there to hold you accountable, and you have structure, and you have someone there to show you, then that's going to be the way for you. If you genuinely learn better by doing, then maybe there's a different route for you. But you just having the self-awareness to understand the way your own mind works and the tricks it tries to pull on you and all of that stuff. I think just taking that time to really figure that out. And when I go speak at the university out here, sometimes I'll get the same question, and the biggest practical tool I think for it is called a SWOT analysis.
Yeah.
SWOT, so strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And there's plenty of stuff that any listener who's interested can Google and research about it, and it's your future. So I think it's worth the effort to use a tool like this to get a better sense of yourself. So the answers are for young people in their career, but I think anybody starting off early in their career, whether it's filmmaking or photography or really anything in the arts or any sort of creative work, is taking the time to allow yourself to experiment, and allow yourself to copy and to try different things. That's eventually how you find out what it is that's unique to you. So just being patient, I think, with that process, understanding it's a process. And the other big thing that I find, there's a lot of fear of rejection or failure that I think can be a difficult thing to overcome. And so, it's very worthwhile to reorient your relationship with rejection and with failure. We tend to look at things as very binary, as either this worked or it didn't work. This was a win or a loss. And if it's a loss, you're awful. As opposed to, there's the analogy of just speed bumps, which I'm not sure how apt of an analogy it is, but I think it's a little bit closer, to the idea. I think something, you're on this journey, right? And sometimes things are going to go the way you planned, and sometimes things aren't going to go the way you planned. And in both cases, that may be in the moment good or bad, but you really don't know. And, you try to absorb the experience, learn from it, and hold yourself to, a higher standard, or learn, like I said, learn something from it, use it, incorporate it into your life and into your work. And eventually those failures just stop feeling like the failure that it is. It starts feeling more like, oh, this is just a thing. This is just a Monday morning. This doesn't really impact what the big mission here is. Like, okay, cool, I didn't get into that thing, or that thing didn't happen for me. That's fine. That's not everything. Take a long time. So I think that helps. And then rejection, or getting critical feedback, and knowing that that's part of the job, right? I mean, that's the difference between being an enthusiast and a professional. And and I think more than anything, it has to do with what is your mentality, towards this. Is this something that you're dedicating yourself to and you're actively working towards, or is it something you do for fun? And there's nothing wrong with either one of those approaches, but knowing that if this is something that you're not just doing for fun, it means there's going to be not fun parts to it. And some of that is going to be, you're going to get your work critiqued, and you're going to get rejected, and that's it's just a working hazard of being a professional.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. I think that's the word you use, professional.
Mm-hmm.
That's difference between an amateur and a professional. Like, a professional takes critique and tries to make things better rather than take it personal.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
sometimes we do
completely
take it
agree with that.
personal.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're humans.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
I mean, and the more exposed you are to it, the less personal it is. And every once in a while, something will pop through and be like, "Oh man, that really, I thought I was over this."
Yeah.
That still kind of stings. But I can compare it to when I was starting out, getting a little bit of bad feedback. I'd spiral. I'd be crushed.
Oh man.
I'd go from really sad to being really angry to, blaming everybody else to, I mean, just following that weird emotional roller coaster. And then now, most of the time,
Mm-hmm.
it's more of a, well, this is part of the process. Like, I know it's not done, so I'm actually coming to you this time to make it better and not just to be told I'm better, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
but I'm still a person, and every once in a while something will get to me.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but it doesn't last as long as it used to, and it doesn't hit as hard as it used to, right? Instead of it being a days, it's a couple minutes, and instead of being the strong emotional feeling, it's more of a grumble, type of thing.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of you kind of grow a callus, you know.
Yes, yeah,
So when it
that makes a lot
hits,
of
it
sense.
doesn't sting as much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, could you tell me what some of the movies will you recommend for somebody that's wants to get a better perspective of cinema? Maybe like five movies that you'd be like, you know
Oh
what,
man,
if you're trying to get into film, these movies are gonna help you to expand your worldview.
dang, that's a question, man. I don't know. I don't know if I'm qualified for that one. I mean, because there's always a prejudice to the classics, right? Um, and wanting to know that world, and then kind of start genres and
Mm-hmm.
Nanook up the north and Metropolis,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of working your way through the screwball comedies and uh, but so let me not approach it that way then.
Yeah,
Let me
let's not
approach it
approach it.
more of,
Yeah, well, what
yeah,
inspired you?
yeah, okay, that I can handle a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Doesn't feel as much responsibility
Mm-hmm.
bearing the entire weight of cinema. So yeah, for me, some of my kind of big key, films that really got me early on was probably Jurassic Park, Back to
Mm-hmm.
the Future, the first Ninja Turtles. Um, those were all things that that just really inspired a love for film and
Mm-hmm.
movies. And then as I started getting more film focused and in that world, I think Aviator and Scorsese was kind of the first entry point for me, and then that eventually turned into Charlie Kaufman and Michel Gondry, um, and then I think Terrence Malick work. Tree of Life is probably my all-time favorite film. Um, Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford is, but I would also put like Dumb and Dumber up there
Oh
and
yeah.
Tommy Boy up there.
Oh, those are
Um,
great. Yeah.
yeah, probably Big Daddy and Happy Gilmore. That
Yeah.
like these are also movies that are just as some other stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
Like
Happy
Moneyball.
Gilmore is
Moneyball's
pretty
a
good.
pretty big one.
Which one?
Yeah, Moneyball.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure if you saw it. Yeah, I love Moneyball. Love Foxcatcher. Uh, but yeah, I mean, in terms of just being a true like movie fan, like not a lot beats you know
Mm-hmm.
early Adam Sandler for me. Like that's what our sleepovers were, and
Mm-hmm.
um, I can still look back at them and be like, yeah, no, these movies are whatever. I love them.
Yeah. Yeah. There's kind of. Is there any other like music that inspires you, or like you hear a song and like an image comes out like, oh man, it'll be great if I could use this for that.
Yeah, well, I think definitely helps going outside of your own medium. Looking for inspiration or trying to clarify the way you feel. For me, I collect art and photography books. Andrew Wyeth is I think probably my favorite artist,
Mm-hmm.
I think about his work quite a bit. Um, I read quite a bit of poetry. I
Oh,
think that
cool.
plays probably a pretty big role, especially in terms of editing. I think about poetry a lot when I'm editing,
Mm-hmm.
because I think even though they're very different mediums, they're both tied to an economy and
Mm-hmm.
efficiency of material. So, with editing, what one shot stands for multiple shots. What shot or um, extra bit of frames gives feeling to something unspoken. The way that what collection of words and sounds gives feeling to something unspoken when you're talking about poems. So those are probably the two big places, and
Mm-hmm.
then yeah, the music. I usually, if I'm writing a new project or working on something new, I'll put together a playlist of just songs that just kind of, this is what it feels like,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Um, so I think it's pretty eclectic. It's pretty all over the place. There's not a lot of genres that I don't know. I grew up on rap mostly, and then a little bit on sort of emo punk, and so
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
those are what's tied to like my adolescence. But yeah, now I think it's just a mix. It's what I feel like, and here are songs to help me stay in that kind of mind space whenever I'm working on it.
All right, cool. Any bands you want to mention?
Um, yeah, I'm trying to think of big acts, music acts, performers. As right now, I'm listening to a lot of Anderson .Paak. I'm a little bit late to the party, but I just discovered him. Um, and then I was very, very late to but I been going through pretty much his entire catalog, and uh, two totally different artists,
Yeah.
but
Sorry, who was the
uh,
last one?
Leonard Cohen.
Oh, Leonard Cohen. Yeah,
Yeah. So
that's pretty cool.
I didn't really even like, I knew his work, but not really much until after he died, and
Yeah, same here.
outside of like 3 or 4 songs, and then yeah, afterwards I started like really getting into it and being like, oh wow, this
Yeah.
is. I mean,
Oh.
I'm not saying anything new. He's just one of the greatest.
Mm-hmm.
It's been really nice to discover this thing that all these other people knew about.
Oh, cool. So, yeah, talking about, so was there a punk scene or metal scene in Tucson when you're growing up?
There's both.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So I didn't really get involved on the metal side at all.
Mm-hmm.
But through all throughout high school, and probably like early college, um, there was quite a bit of emo punk bands that came through, and that was mostly what I had seen. And but we had some good hip hop acts come through too. I remember seeing Talib Kweli pretty early on
Mm-hmm.
when he came through, and you know that was one of the the big guys for me. So that was exciting.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So, is there more like a hip hop scene down there?
Oh well, now it's there's kind of almost everything. I mean, we have a pretty strong and eclectic mix
Mm-hmm.
of music out here. Um, I think things that are coming out of people in their early 20s,
Mm-hmm.
music that they're making right now is really interesting, because you're getting folks kind of fear coming here because it is a college town,
Mm-hmm.
but then they're getting influenced by the traditional sounds out here, and but then we over the last, I don't know, probably 40 years, we've had plenty of sort of subgroupings happening too out here. So it's pretty active. It's a strange space, but everybody has very much their scene, and but we're seeing it converge, I think, a little bit more now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, since moving, from Southern California to Arizona and Phoenix, I feel like there's a more active music scene here in Arizona than back in Southern California.
Oh, that's interesting. I somebody had explained it to me. Um, where they had moved, they had done a similar move, right? And they had said, out in Southern California, or I think they were coming directly from LA, and they're saying music there, and this is just like anecdotal, one person, so take it with a grain of salt, but they felt like it was just hyper competitive, and everybody was very much worried about themselves. And then once they got out here, not that it was like purely kumbaya, there's still people that everybody's trying to make a living and trying to get views, but it was just a much more support, and a lot less, I don't know if insecurity is the right word, but maybe careerism.
Definitely, I agree with that. Yeah, over there, even the graffiti, I think it's more kind of authentic out here. More like people, you know, care for their craft, even when it comes to tagging on the walls.
That I totally agree with. I think this is a great place for craft. Maybe not always the best place for career, but this is a place where, everybody's expressing themselves if you're working in one of these fields. So you want to be seen or heard in some way.
Yeah.
But there's still, I think, more of a authentic component in that a lot of times it's, 50-50 is, am I about quality or am I about, ambition? I think out here, that number is probably more like 80-20 for a lot of people. No, I really just want to make good stuff and really believing in that, and less about, see me type of mentality.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, coming from Southern California, we pre-COVID, it was hard, to go to a concert in Southern California and not feel like, oh, the band is pretending or not being genuine. Even with the hip hop scene in LA, I felt it was kind of like stifled by, I need to make it. I need to make it. Out here, it's more like people writing songs or composing or beat making for the sake of the song rather than I'm gonna make it.
Yeah, I think there's probably a pretty good analogy to that with also with the world of improv. I don't make anything, do anything with comedy, but I am a big fan, and so I listen to a lot of stuff about it, and there's the performers that go in with mentality of like, hey, I just want to do this for the sake of doing it. And then there's people that go take their first class at Groundlings and are immediately like, okay, when's my SNL audition?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think, yeah, probably with here the same thing with hip hop, it's like, all right, cool. Where's my shot at doing a feature some place? And in Tucson, I think it's a little bit, like you said, more about like, okay, let's actually care about what it is that we're doing, and try to make something that is good quality, and it still gets seen, and you want to get it heard, but just a different, slightly.
So let's take it back to poetry. So who are some of your poets that you kind of read and reread?
Yeah, Ron Paget is probably the big one that I go back to his work quite a bit. Tracy K. Smith, I really, really love her stuff. I mean, she does a little bit kind of longer lines, slightly longer verse. But I really love her voice and, the quality of her work. Trying to think who's on the top of my shelf right now. Probably William Carlos Williams. Or school is Ron Paget, and probably Philip Levine, I think, is in that batch as well. And those are people that I really enjoy. In terms of older, Walt Whitman, a little bit harder to read, if I'm being honest. But so it's not for one to like, for me at least, to sit down and try to read all all of a collection, or all of Leaves of Grass. Is that what it's called? Leaves of Grass.
Yeah, Leaves of Grass.
Yeah. But it, something you flip to a page and enjoy and be like, oh wow, that's incredible. Just twisting it around, or get a little kick out of a line here or there.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, let's about to wrap up the podcast. We kind of been on here for a while now, because I know you have children.
Yeah.
So, there's anything else you want to talk about?
No.
Any projects you're
I
working on right now that you want to kind of
yeah,
shed some light?
things are starting to kind of open up again. Looking at some commercial campaigns, doing a whole lot of writing right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where most of the focus is. I have two more shorts that are finished that we'll be releasing online over the next couple months here. So hopefully there'll be some good news there to share. Hopefully get some good reactions. But yeah, just trying to make good stuff, man.
All right. So, the shorts, are there like original documentary?
Yeah, so they're both scripted.
Mm-hmm.
First one's called Dead Languages. It's sort of a surreal beach story.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one is called Where the Sun Goes to Die, and it's sort of a metaphysical thriller.
Wow.
And yeah, so we'll see what the reaction is. The Dead Languages did relatively well on the festival. Die got funded by the National Endowment of the Arts and by NALIP,
Mm-hmm.
and then was picked up by Sony Pictures for broadcast release.
Oh wow, that's pretty
So
cool.
we'll see how it does on the next batch, but yeah, definitely proud of both those films, and it'll be fun to finally share them with a larger audience.
Yeah, and when they're released, where people can find them?
We'll keep them posted on crownchimp.com, on NickolasDuarte.com, which is my portfolio sites. And then hopefully with both of those, we'll find some sort of partner also to put them on other platforms.
All right, cool. Where could people follow you on social media?
So I would love anybody who's interested to follow. I'm not super active.
Mm-hmm.
But I do use Instagram from time to time, and that's at Mr. Nick Duarte. We're also there as at Crown Chimp, and that handle's pretty well kept up. So the person that runs that, she does a really nice job. So there's always something going on with that Crown Chimp. So that's for both Twitter and Instagram. I really don't mess with Facebook at all. But there's yeah, it is kind of got done with it. But Facebook.com / Crown Chimp Films. We post new stuff there, and sometimes crew calls, cast calls.
Mm-hmm. All right, cool. Well, thank you so much, Nick, for taking the time out of your day. Talk to me.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Always, happy to chat, and hopefully highlights